that America will become a land sharing the fruits of the land, not for the favored few, not to satisfy greed, but that all may live in a land in which the Lord has provided an abundance sufficient for the luxury and convenience of the people in general. I think.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the ghost of General Smedley Butner here with the ghost of Judge James Horton. How you doing, Judge?
Can't complain. Survived the weather. How about you?
I survived the weather too. There was one really big lightning strike by me, but other than that, everything went north.
Yeah, well, I went north too, which was the problem. My mom's got a basement up in Huntsville. We don't have one here, so me, the wife, the kid, we went up there and wrote out the weather, and of course we wound up getting polygoned there, and it barely rained at our house. So, and that's how it always goes.
Chelsea and Calera got hit pretty bad.
Hammered.
That was not
Clanton got hit. Talladega got hit.
Yeah. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all the people that were affected by the severe weather, but it could have been way worse according to all the parameters and the James spans and the prognosticators. So,
right. And we're just getting started with tornado season, so, here goes.
Another beautiful Alabama spring.
So what are we talking about today, General?
We're going to talk about the continuing resolution and how the Democrats do not represent any section of the American public, especially Alabamians.
About how they rolled over and bit the pillow and just waited for it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Chuck Schumer kept the filibuster in for this exact reason. And when this exact reason came up...
And then didn't use it.
Didn't use it at all.
So I think we start with some background information. What is a continuing resolution?
Well, from my understanding, a continuing resolution is trying to do the same old from the last budget bill that was passed.
Right, just roll it forward.
Just roll it forward, and it's usually 6 months. I'm not sure.
Anytime they can put, like the most recent one we did in December, I think ran for 3 months or 4. So and they try to do a year initially with this one, and it wound up being I think 6 or 7 months. So you're exactly right about that, and there are two types of continuing resolutions. There's a quote-unquote clean CR, and there's a dirty CR. Clean meaning you just keep everything exactly the same as it was in the previous budget. Dirty meaning there's going to be some changes here. And so here, with this continuing resolution, Republicans allege that it's clean. Democrats say that it's dirty. What say you, General?
It's dirtier than hell.
It is. It's so dirty. It's filthy.
It's about as dirty as Alabama football recruited in the 90s.
Not that dirty. Not that dirty. Albert Means called.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You say that, and Auburn got put on probation for paying a guy diapers. But no, they absolutely changed Medicare and Medicaid cuts.
They did HUD cuts as well.
Yes. They snuck in a lot of entitlement cuts into a continuing resolution, which it's illegal, I think. But Congress is just like, whatever. So you can't call it a continuing resolution if you add more cuts.
Right. It's not continuing. It's something different.
It's a new budget is what it is.
So we've got this new budget, other things that happened, cut HUD.
Right. Can you tell the people what HUD is?
Housing and Urban Development. It's, when one of our stated campaign goals is to bring the cost of rent down, and one of the very first things we do is cut the department that gives these sort of rent subsidies to low-income Americans.
So HUD cuts, Medicare cuts, Medicaid cuts.
Defense spending increases, ICE deportation, or border security, I guess you'd call it, increases.
Right. I mean, there's a whole different area of wrongful detainment we got to talk about eventually, but we're going to stick to the money now because that's what affects Alabama pocketbooks right now.
Right, because it's about the money, you morons.
And I was looking it up, and the current cuts that we have is going to be $1 trillion over 10 years. So
now, is that to the budget generally or specific?
To the budget generally for Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay.
More than 72% of Alabama's Medicaid funding comes from the federal government. So already right there, that's a massive haircut. And I think it was something along the lines of this year it's going to be 2% and some change already.
Yeah. 2% Medicaid sequestration.
Yeah. That's a great word that I never use ever.
Yeah.
Except when I'm talking about budgets.
Right. And truth be told, they only use the word because they don't want to use the word cuts. And they can say sequester. We're sequestering the funds, and nobody knows what the fuck they mean.
You're going to hide those funds away somewhere?
Right. You're going to stash them in your little slush fund there.
Oh, yeah. Nice little sequester village.
Right. So do you know where the term slush fund comes from? Because we're going to talk about that some today.
I do not know where the term slush fund comes from.
All right. So in the British Royal Navy back in the day, if you're a ship's cook, one of the things that you do for common meals is you boil salted meat, right? Usually salted pork, but whatever. When you're doing it, the fat comes out and it congeals at the top in this like slimy, sticky substance. So one of the perks to being a ship's cook was you could ladle that off and sell it. They used it to waterproof ropes. They could make candles with it. And so they called it their slush fund because they took the slush and they sold it, and that was extra money that they brought in.
Okay, I gotcha.
Learned something today.
So the slush fund, is that literally
the fund from the slush?
Yeah, okay. But I was looking at the cuts, and they're already going to impact the struggling hospitals in Alabama right now. I think we've got something along the lines of 9 hospitals that are about to fold right now.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, a lot of people that are going to be affected by this may not even realize it because Medicaid parades under so many different names in different states.
Right. But the rural healthcare community in Alabama has been so underserved.
It's already hanging on by a thread.
It's not even hanging on by a thread because they don't even have inpatient care right now. If you're pregnant in Selma, you got to drive to Birmingham.
Or Montgomery or whatever.
I don't think Montgomery has inpatient care for prenatal, like OBGYN care for women.
Wow.
I think they have to drive to Birmingham.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bad. Huntsville has been hit, and good luck if you're at any sort of periphery. Like Thomasville had to drop their inpatient care for women and just general in hospital care. So everything's turned into almost like an outpatient procedure. But, our people need health care. They need, even if they have the funds to buy it, it's not there for them to use it.
Right.
So what's the point of having, healthcare physicians in rural counties if we're not willing to help them out and serve the community?
Well, and the additional thing with healthcare is we already have the most expensive healthcare on the planet. So we take that as the starting point, as the status quo, and we're removing these government programs that have helped the average person afford that world's most expensive healthcare. And so it's not even like it's worse here than it would be elsewhere because of those fundamental dynamics.
That and the jobs are going to go. Mm-hmm. I got to look at the numbers, but I think something like the UAB is the largest employer in the state.
And then not only the jobs, what happens to the downstream science? Because we've cut a lot of this research and development money that's coming into these large teaching hospitals and various things. So what happens when that gets cut and then 10 years down the road, all the breakthroughs that should have happened, all the advancements that should have happened, all the improvements that should have happened, and then didn't because research was essentially put on hold during the Trump administration?
Well, what's the point of a scientific breakthrough if you go back to not having vaccinations and have a measles outbreak?
Where I want to go from here is James Carville, and we all know him.
Right. He's a political strategist, worked on the Bill Clinton campaign.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Louisiana, fantastic LSU fan.
So he's on Fast Politics with Molly Jong Fast, who's like a Democratic operative, and why exactly she's famous, I'm not sure, but regardless, she's got a show and he's on it.
Is it regardless or irregardless?
I think it's regardless, but I don't know. Right. I'm an Alabamian. We don't English well. So he's on Fast Politics with Molly, and he makes the point, and rather than paraphrase it, I'll just play it.
And for the Action Now caucus, my question is, what action that we want to do? God damn it, okay, what are we going to do? So to the people who say we want to fight, great, fight how? You don't have the votes. You can't pass gas. That's the consequence of losing an election. All right, get over it, dude.
So when people are like, fight, 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 what do we do, says James Carville.
you hold the grenade and threaten to blow up the whole room.
That's the point. Is the one mechanism that Democrats have that they can use to affect policy is the filibuster. That's it. And they didn't use it here.
The Republicans have used it very well over the past 30 years, where they're, we're gonna veto this, we're gonna filibuster that, and the Democrats finally have a perfect opportunity to hold their feet to the fire and own a government shutdown, and they cave.
Like just back away.
Which makes me think that the same people that are backing the Republicans are backing the Democrats.
So that's exactly the point that I want to pick up with. Well, first off, before we even get there, but because I think that's the overall point that we're going to end up at. Let's not assume people know what a filibuster is. You care to explain the procedural relevance, or you want me to do it?
A filibuster back in the day was where you got up and you spoke on the Senate floor for so long, everyone got tired and went home, and no bill was passed.
Where you like literally read like the newspaper or the dictionary or your grandma's cooking recipe.
That Strom Thurmond, back when he really didn't like civil rights, read the phone book. Now, that was back in the day where you actually had to earn a filibuster.
Now they just have the cloture vote.
Yes, where you need a 2/3 majority to pass anything unless someone just walks up and goes filibuster, and then it's over.
Right.
So it's one of the most ridiculous procedural implications that has happened over the past. It's very impactful because the Republicans have used it so well. They filibustered Supreme Court nominations. They filibustered judicial nominations. They filibustered
for 2 years.
Correct. Because it was an election cycle for 2 years.
Right.
But the Democrats now had a perfect time to filibuster and make the Republicans actually do something and own a possible government shutdown or come back to the House floor with something that would work. But they didn't, which makes me think they wanted this all along. So what's the point of voting Democrat if all they're going to do is
capitulate
to Republican interests?
Well,
I'm not even going to say Republican interests. I'm going to say the moneyed interests.
Billionaire interests.
Yes. Because there are good Republicans out there that just want small government and to get along. But
I don't believe that there are good Republicans currently in office in Washington.
Okay, I'll agree with that.
Now, are there rank and file good Republicans who are true believers in the population and want what they truly believe they've been sold, or that they want what the Republican Party has told them that the Republican Party wants, even though their actions say differently? Yes, the rank and file is there. There are good people in the community.
Well, I cannot tell you right now what the core principles of the Republican or Democratic Party are.
I can't either.
I can't.
It's gamesmanship. I'll tell you exactly what the core principle is. The core principle is to maintain power. What little bit of it you currently have.
But like the whole small government, working class.
That's bullshit.
Like all of that is, what the Democrats and the Republicans used to stand for. That's been thrown out the window.
This idea that Republicans are for small government or for the working class or for farmers is ridiculous. And this idea that Democrats are going to support the unions and like bring things back to people, also crap. And to your point, it's because these people are beholding. But I want to ask you a question. We talk about the Democrats broadly speaking, and I agree that what they did this past week is an abject failure. Are they all the same? Is because right now the Republican Party is a monolith, save Rand Paul. The Republican Party is Donald Trump. It is him. No one goes against him. No one talks back to him. No one counters him. No one pushes other ideas other than his. Is the Democratic Party similarly a monolith?
From the leadership down?
Yes.
Yes. There are a few, like I would say AOC.
Ilhan Omar.
She's gone, isn't she?
She might have got primary.
She got primary. Yeah, she's gone.
Is she?
So like those
Jasmine Crockett from Texas.
Yeah, those low level
younger.
But I'd put like the Georgia boys into more of an independent thinking, like
Ossoff and Warnock.
Yeah,
I would too.
But
so is it? Do we break it down along those people that are either too? So take Bernie Sanders, who's been there forever, right? Independent, ran as a Democrat. Bernie Sanders. He's been there forever, but he's never been beholden to special interests. He still lives in the same small house in Vermont that he's always lived in. So we obviously can't put it down to the length of time that somebody's been in Congress for the corruption, which was what I was about to do. I was about to say that AOC and Jasmine Crockett and the people that are and the two boys from Georgia that you mentioned that are recent to the party haven't been corrupted by special interest money yet. And the people like Schumer, like McConnell, like Pelosi have been, because they've been there too fucking long.
Well, they have been there so long that they're going to die in Congress and no one's going to notice.
Absolutely. We just had a Democrat die in Congress 2 weeks ago.
Yes. And
that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Should be. Now, don't get me wrong. If you get killed in a car accident, that's one thing, right? You can't help that. But you shouldn't be dying of old age while a sitting member of Congress. Jesus Christ. Like
the geriocracy.
So it's actually gerontocracy.
Gerontocracy.
I learned that this past week because I thought it was a geriocracy too. It would make sense, wouldn't it?
Ocracy run by Jerry's.
Right. I mean, you think that. Speaking of Jerry's, they're rearming, but you know.
There you go. You're trying to figure out, one, how do we get in this mess, and two, what do we do now that we're in this mess? Because I think that knowing the cause is important to knowing the cure.
It is, and I guess the question is.
No, I just asked the questions. You got to answer them.
You're right. Does it just come down to the two-party system? Because that's the easy answer that I can give, is that we're sort of presented with Republican and Republican light, which is to say, not even traditional Republican necessarily, but pro-billionaire and slightly less pro-billionaire.
The fundamental problem, I believe, comes down to people having principles. And right now, no one on Capitol Hill actually has fundamental principles that they stand on other than staying elected. And staying elected means towing the party line and getting the funding to win your race.
Has it always been that way, or is it just recently that way?
I think it's gotten because back in the day, you would have defectors. Every once in a while, you'd have somebody be like, no, I just don't like giving money to Iowa. Like, we're not going to do it.
So which
is a fundamental good principle to stand on.
I mean, fuck Iowa. But does it just come down to, because something's clearly changed from the 1960s and 70s to today?
Well, it's the top-down money system that you have to appease the leadership to get the cash, to run your race, to get reelected. That's it. If you don't have independent funding or another apparatus to get money other than through the party, you're screwed. So why go off and be a lone wolf now? Because the party has taken control away from individual representatives and senators and now fully vested it in the leadership. And it's get along or go to hell. And the senators have become terrified of that. The representatives are terrified of that. Like, you've seen the primaries that AIPAC and everybody else did to the junior Democratic congressman. The Republicans, like, you look at Liz Cheney, you're looking at Adam Kinzinger, that got primary to hell and back because they opposed Trump. So it's all about top-down party control from the few bazillionaires that can force those types of changes. That's where I think it is. I think it's a fundamental top-down cash flow controlled by Senate congressional leadership.
I agree that I think the money is the problem. So, to a degree.
Also, let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Why do you even run for office? They don't put people up for office that actually can think for themselves.
Right.
So you're a yes man. You're like Tommy Tuberville. You're a Katie Britt who's going to go up there and nod your head and do whatever the party tells you to do. You're not independent. You're not looking out for the average Alabamian. Hell, Tuberville lives in Florida.
Right. He comes here like 3 times a year.
When they think about him running for governor, are you shitting me?
Be the most time he spent in Alabama since he coached here.
So we're trying to find a way to break that apparatus from the bottom up through sheer populism and to make Alabama a better place. And I think it's doable because people are so fed up.
I agree with that. And I think the fact that Donald Trump is the president of the United States is evidence of that. Is people that vote for him see him as a rejection of the status quo. And it's almost a vote to blow up the system, as it were. That it's not working for the average person.
It is not.
It works great for the average billionaire, but not the average person. And so the money is one issue. And it leads to the second issue, which is...
I think term limits are a problem in there as well.
Career
politicians.
But that's a constitutional problem. It's not really a money one. Right,
well,
right. It's one that we would have to adjust.
What happens if, let's say, a certain political party decides to self-impose term limits?
Which we would do. Which
is exactly what we're going to get. We're looking at imposing 2-term term limits for every office that we run a candidate to. Mm-hmm. We don't want people to be career politicians. We want people to serve
fresh
the public.
Blood, fresh ideas, and fresh energy.
Get in there, serve the public, and get out. It's not a career. It's a service.
Right.
And we need more people to think with honor and dignity, and to try to help people out as opposed to leeching off the system.
So honor and dignity and virtue and all these things are well and good. But we understand the old maxim that power corrupts. And
Correct.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So when you get into office, truly, the goal of the special interests of what used to just be lobbyists, right? Because I read a book called The Third House back in the early 2000s that was about the effect lobbyists had on Congress. But really, it's even past that now. It's individual billionaires that are able to affect things far greater than any lobbyist ever was. So is the goal of these people, once, let's say, a good, well-meaning person gets into Congress, is it the goal of the powers that be, and by the powers that be, I don't even necessarily mean the government, I mean the billionaires, is it the goal of the powers that be to corrupt that person?
I don't think the billionaires have to. I think the leadership will do it for them. Because the billionaires demand loyalty to their cause, or else they're not going to pay for these races. And in order to have loyalty to their cause, all the party members must fall in line. If the party members don't fall in line, leadership must whip them into shape or whip them out of Congress.
So is it that fundamentally both parties are rotten to the core?
I think so.
Do you reform or do you just throw it all away?
I don't think you can reform it because they're so entrenched. I believe it's going to have to be third and fourth parties to the first past the post systems is always going to be a problem.
Right.
But if you throw a somewhat incorruptible party in there, that's going to make them actually have to work for it.
So one thing that this week has done with Schumer's refusal to use the filibuster, which, by the way, he telegraphed earlier in the week that he was absolutely going to do and vote against the continuing resolution and then didn't. I've always been somebody that's against the two wings on the same bird argument. I've always thought there's been a fundamental difference in the parties, and I still think there is.
I don't.
And I think it's one of degree, right? I think they're both essentially conservative parties. And if you think the Republicans have ran to the right and the Democrats have chased them to the right, people that tell me, oh, the Democrats are more liberal now than they've ever been, bullshit. When's the last time you guys...
I mean, what does it mean to be liberal?
Socialized medicine, reasonable gun control, social safety net. They've ran from all that. You've not got any meaningful gun violence prevention legislation. And when we say gun control, we don't mean taking everyone's guns. We mean actually doing background checks that are supposed to be done. You know, when we talk about, because I mentioned this, that the healthcare as a system is not regulable by capitalism. Like you have to intervene. That's why every other country essentially has done that. You're not getting those sorts of like what they would call progressive policy proposals out of the Democrats. You didn't get them out of Biden. Biden was a Republican right. He was closer to George Bush than he was Barack Obama.
Correct.
They've chased them right in this idea that anybody is liberal in government these days. AOC is, but the parties aren't. This idea that AOC controls the Democratic Party, again, bullshit.
Well, but we're here, like, I don't necessarily want to, create a liberal party. I want to create a party that
I want
makes
to create a
money.
populist party.
Yes, I want to help Alabamians and put food on their table.
I want to provide a reasonable alternative.
If you work 40 hours a week, you need to be able to have 2 kids, white picket fence,
I agree.
Dog.
Well,
Maybe not a pit bull, but a dog.
so
Sorry, I don't like pit bulls.
yeah, I mean, I own one, and she's the sweetest thing ever. But I take the point. But I really think like liberal and conservatives are sort of misnomers at this point. It's billionaire and non-billionaire.
Yeah. If you ain't
It's
in that
rich
club,
establishment and everybody else. And let me ask you this: we're now offering white Afrikaners, citizenship here. Like, bring the rich ones over. What does that do to the non-rich people here? If you're bringing in more overlords, more people to keep you down, more people for you to work for, because that's what they're bringing in, right?
but think of the shareholders.
Like they're not bringing in, the poor, the starving, the huddled masses. They're bringing in the captains of industry for us to work for them to take advantage of us, of the greatest thing America's got to offer. It's people and it's labor.
Well, I have a fundamental disagreement with how our government's run right now, where it's more of a top-down innovation standard.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe that works. I believe innovation comes from the bottom up. I believe it comes from the working people that see a good idea, go out in their garage and make it work, and then make a couple $1 million.
It absolutely does. For everything that Boeing or Lockheed Martin patents, that came from an engineer making $150K a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the company patents something worth billions, potentially, in the long run over the life of the
Yeah, but he got a nice gift basket at Christmas.
Right. Really, give him that nice set of golf clubs.
Yeah.
He used that bonus to buy them.
Jelly of the Month Club.
Right. So coming back to the continuing resolution, which was the point of all this initially. So we've obviously got some pet projects, some, the HUD stuff, some healthcare stuff, reduction of those. You expect those out of Republicans. And then an increase in defense spending and an increase in immigration customs enforcement. Again, all that's expected. So if my question to you is, General, everything that you're talking about, I kind of expected it. What's so damn bad about this continuing resolution that you're saying Democrats should have filibustered? Because that's really seems to be the point that we're both making, is that Schumer had the filibuster, didn't use it, didn't help the American people with it.
It's absolutely going to gut Alabama health care. There's going to be SNAP.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to cut food. It's literally taking food out of children's mouths in Alabama. Like, how can you allow that to happen? These governmental programs are what Alabama relies on. Keeping our hospitals open, keeping our elderly cared for, giving kids lunches and, food stamps and stuff. Like, people are struggling out there now. People need food stamps. You can't spend food stamps on beer and alcohol and all that. You got to spend it on actual food.
Actual meaningful food.
Yes. So if someone needs a meal, come on, let's give them a goddamn meal.
So structurally is really what I'm worried about. Right, is in the scheme of things, budgets come, budgets go. Pet projects come, pet projects go. And I agree that this is going to be damaging to Alabama. But we've done a whole episode on the Doge Depression and how damaging that's going to be, and the tariffs and how bad they're going to hurt us.
Well, Alabama has never really seen this type of.
No, this is different.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, Alabama's been insulated from recessions and depressions before because we were too poor in the Great Depression to really matter. 2, in the Great Recession, we relied so much on the government already, we didn't feel it. I mean, yeah, some people felt it here and there, but like the average Alabamian who works paycheck to paycheck really didn't feel 08.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to hurt because now all of that federal aid, that safety net that's kept this state alive for so long, it's gone.
So it is. And the bigger concern for me is this, and here was the fight But because the idea is, if you want the Democrats to use the filibuster, obviously the goal is to eventually pass a continuing resolution and have a budget and have the government open and operating, but to get something out of it, which is what Schumer didn't do. Right? He rolled over and passed a complete 100% partisan Republican version of a continuing resolution with no Democratic input whatsoever. So what is, outside of the pet projects, which are going to hurt, what's the big risk? And the answer for me is impoundment. You familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
All right. You are. You're just not familiar with like the specific context of the word. It's what Trump has been doing and what Nixon originally was doing back in 74. They passed the Impoundment Control Act, the ICA. And it's where Congress was approving funds to use for something, and Nixon was just not spending them as he saw fit.
Gotcha.
And so Congress passed something and said, okay, President, if you want to do that, you got 45 days to submit something to us, and Congress can either approve or disapprove of the departure from the approved spending bill. So Republicans are of the opinion that the Impoundment Control Act of 74 is unconstitutional.
Or just doesn't exist.
And I mean, for them, from what I've read, they say it's unconstitutional. I mean, never mind the fact it's been the law of the land for 41 years or whatever it is now.
I don't think it's like the Supreme Court's never had to take up that issue, have they?
So various courts have. Supreme Courts have taken up very similar issues with the line item veto and the
that's somewhat
Chindalaha or whatever that decision was.
Right.
They've taken up very similar issues, and the appeals courts have ruled on this. But I don't think SCOTUS has necessarily. So the idea is, and what Democrats were originally trying to extort, was some limit to the impoundment that Trump is doing. And by impoundment, what I mean is what Musk is doing. Like previously appropriated federal funds that they've decided not to spend, they decided to slash or to push elsewhere, to go elsewhere.
I did not know the power of the purse was given to some guy from South Africa.
Apparently it was. So that was really the goal of Democrats, was to extract some sort of agreement to limit the powers of DOJ or the powers of Donald Trump to unilaterally disregard the spending appropriations made by Congress under the power of the purse.
So they actually put out their goals and then caved on them immediately.
Yes. So we get no meaningful, and I've used this word meaningful a bunch, we get no restrictions whatsoever on the impoundment done by Donald Trump. And that's how the conservative branch of the Republican Party, the turbo conservatives that are about the austerity and balancing the budget, they had issues with this. And it was far from a foregone conclusion that it was going to get out of the House. Do you know how they overcame those issues?
How?
They told them that, listen, what we're setting is a ceiling, not a floor on spending. Just because we appropriate it doesn't mean we have to spend it. That's going to be up to Donald Trump and Elon Musk to decide what we spend.
Oh, so we don't even know the true budget cuts.
We don't even know the true budget cuts. They're saying that Donald Trump has the inherent authority to do it, or that Elon Musk has the authority to do it through Donald Trump.
There is not anywhere in the Constitution that
even suggests that.
Yeah. Everything I learned when I was coming up was that Congress has the power of the purse. I've heard that from every judge forever.
It would violate presentment, bicameralism, the power of the purse. So many bedrock principle foundations of this republic that are under attack right now.
And Schumer
gave it up.
Yeah.
Like a drunk prom date.
Like, man, bring me back. But
you were that drunk prom date.
Oh, yes, I was. Hey. Anyway, Schumer had the chance to stand up and do the right thing for democracy, and he didn't because Wall Street called him and said, hey, the market's slipping a little bit. We need this.
Yeah.
And he rolled over.
He did.
And the fact that
after he said he wouldn't.
I know. Like, at least have the courage of your convictions. Take it on the chin and tell your donors, sorry, guys, I got to protect America.
And what has he got to lose? The man's in his 70s. If he runs again, it might be surprising. What have you got to lose at that point? You've put your shift in.
Why hasn't he been voted out of leadership right now in the Senate caucus?
It just happened. Give it time.
You think he's gone?
Not necessarily. I think enough of the party's pissed that.
Did you see the Democrat approval numbers?
No.
22%.
I don't approve of the job they're doing.
Lower than Trump.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the point of having a Democratic Party if they're going to do that?
There is no resistance at this point. They play lip service to being a resistance, but truly they're not doing anything.
I worked with the president, and he said no. What can I do?
Right. We don't have. They hold the power. They've got the power. We can't do anything. Oh, poor us Democrats. That's the one thing that you can do, is use the filibuster to move the needle 1%. Right.
Well, no, just use filibuster, threaten to blow it all up, unless they actually do something right. Hold the country hostage, like the Republicans have done time
so
after time
many
after time.
times.
And if, the U.S. default, well, guess what? It's the Trump and the Republicans that cause the U.S. to default. Granted, that would, send the country into World War whatever. Like the U.S. dollar would tank. Everyone would go hungry. But if you have to do that to stop this madness, you've got to do it.
I mean, the idea is that conservatives would capitulate before they got there. But I also think, and I said this earlier, the term conservative is also bullshit at this point. If by conservative you mean small government, incremental change, that's not what this Republican Party is. This Republican Party is authoritarianism, sweeping change, gutting government, and a complete transformation of American government, essentially overnight. Not only government, but and economics and society. This is a radical reshaping. It is not conservative.
They've been using the term mandate, which I don't believe the Republican Party has a mandate.
They don't.
But the Democrats, in my opinion, are just as bad.
I think they're complicit. I think just as bad is a bridge too far for me, but I think they're complicit. I mean, the same with media. I think what you would call quote unquote liberal media is completely failing at holding the Trump administration accountable for what they're doing. And I think quote unquote conservative media is complicit in what he's doing. And I think that's the difference.
But it's all about TV ratings.
It is all about TV ratings.
No one cares about the actual message. It's about gluing your face to that TV.
Getting the advertising dollars.
Right.
Making a profit, entertaining you.
That's
not educating
They don't care
you.
about making America okay or better or even like educated. It's about that profit margin.
I literally do not turn on cable news.
It's the worst.
Worst.
I'll do some podcasts here and there.
I do a lot of reading. I'm a reader.
Read a lot of articles. I get most of my news from TikTok.
Attaboy.
Joe Rogan podcast.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
JRE. But yeah, it's all the impoundment and the Democrats attempting to extract some sort of concessions about limitations on executive power to unilaterally reshape government without a congressional approval. And then there's the simultaneous promise, which has been touted from J.D. Vance, who's whipping the votes in both houses of Congress, or both houses of the legislature, from individual rank and file congressmen, that the reason they voted yes, the conservative core of the Republican Party, is they expect the budget not to be followed, and for Musk and Trump to demolish it and truly implement the cuts. And that's the issue, is they've given Elon Musk a free run at this thing. And the only meaningful chance that they had to even be a speed bump in this process, they just gave away for the next 7 months.
Well, in my opinion, the entire leadership of both parties needs
complicit.
to be replaced. And
I agree.
From the state, local, like all of it.
Mm-hmm. The leadership of the Democratic Party is worthless. The Republicans are effective.
They have been for a while.
And you can, the current iteration of the Republican Party is the purest form of evil. But
I think you're just as evil if you allow it to happen.
I don't disagree. But
Terry Sowell out here with the safest seat in the world.
I've never even seen her do a media spot.
Not banging a pot, not doing anything, not talking about what's going on.
I've never even seen her do a media spot. Yet at the same time, if we talk about these people in safe districts that sit around, draw a check, run for re-election in 2 years, and guaranteed to win.
Talking about Gary Palmer?
Yeah. Then we also need to talk about the people in swing districts that refuse to step on a limb because they're worried about that seat.
Susan Collins.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I think the problem runs every direction, but it's hard not to become disillusioned. As someone who voted for McCain in 2008 and then Obama in 2012, right. I'm that one of the handful of McCain-Obama voters that you will ever find.
I think we could both agree that there are serious issues in America, and you and I are doing this thing right here to at least put an effort into fixing it.
Or are we screaming into the void?
I don't think we are. I think there are people out there that share a similar vision of making this world a little bit better.
Yeah.
And just, not being a full-on piece of shit and helping out your neighbor.
How hard is it to be honest with people?
Yeah. Just, let's strive to help one another get through the next day and build a better America. But that being said, let's talk about happy stuff.
Okay.
Alabama and Auburn in the NCAA tournament, 1 seed, 2 seed.
Yeah.
Who you got in your Final Four there, Judge?
The Auburn Tigers, the Florida Gators, the Tide, and that's a homer pick because I think Cooper Flagg is the best player in the country.
Duke's pretty good.
Cooper Flagg is the best player in America. And then I forget who I got coming out of the Houston bracket. It's not Houston.
Tennessee, I think, is down there.
No, I didn't pick Tennessee either. I picked the 3 seed out of that bracket.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
going with the 3 seed.
Yeah. I don't like to pick chalk because it's boring, right? I picked the 2, 5, 12 upsets.
As a 1 seed, I'm picking chalk all day.
Yeah. I mean,
but Florida's playing the best basketball right now.
So Auburn was the best team in the country all year. Florida's the best team in the country right now.
I agree with that. That said, I think between Duke, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, Auburn, and I'm going to say Houston.
Mm-hmm. Those are the teams that can win national title.
Those are the national title contenders right
I agree.
there.
I agree.
Iowa State had a bad injury. They've fallen off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anybody else competing with those guys. But Alabama might have to play Vanderbilt for the 3rd time. I mean, that's going to be rough. Auburn could play Ole Miss 4 times.
So the bad one for Auburn would be
Michigan State.
Michigan State would be tough. But I'm going to tell you what scares me is you get Louisville in the 2nd round in Kentucky.
Yeah.
That'll be a home game for them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in Rupp, but like.
Yeah. But hey, I'm excited to watch it. But I went and saw a Squadron game the other day.
Did you? How was that?
That was awesome. I had a really good time.
We need to go to one of those.
Yeah. We need to go.
Giddy up, baby. Or giddy up. It's giddy up.
That's what it is. Pony up.
Pony up. Whatever. It works.
You a donor?
They can pay me for that one.
Okay.
But
yes, to all of our listeners out there, we are going to start doing some meetups.
Yep.
We're going to start trying to get a little more organized. I think we've kind of gotten our voice out there and kind of gotten our thoughts out there to our friends and family. And so we're just going to start building some momentum and see what we can
try to grow organically and see if we can't make some change.
So you should be able to see our logos popping up out there. Feel free to buy some merch off the website and throw them out there yourself. But
talk to your friends, talk to your family, email us, write us, tweet us.
If you've got ideas, email us. Let us know. We'll be happy to consider them and maybe even run with them and put you in charge of something, in your local neighborhood. I don't know. Like this, we've never done this before, so
we're trying here.
But after the election, the judge and I looked at each other and said, we've got to do something. And so this is what we're going to do.
Right.
And if we can move the needle a little bit, it would have been worth it.
I mean, the one thing that we can say for sure is Republicans have been in power, Democrats have been in power, and the one thing that's been constant is the rich get richer and we get poorer.
It's a big club and you ain't in it.
Right. Wasn't even invited. But I'm the judge.
And I'm the general.
We'll see you next time.
Take care.